it's Wacky Anime What If here to present you with What If Deku Had a Yandere Quirk? Let's get into this. Currently, Izuku Midoriya is very excited because he's about to get his quirk today. He's about to go to the quirk doctor and everything. He can become a hero. He's jumping up and down off of his bed. He hops off his bed, runs towards his door, opens it very quickly, and sprints out. He runs directly towards his mom's door and forgets one fact. There's a door there, so he runs right into it and hits his head. He falls to the ground, gets back up, and immediately starts knocking on the door saying, "Mom, Mom, Mom." And immediately, Inko says, "What is it?" And Izuku just has like a smirk, and Inko says, "Don't you dare, don't you?" And he says, "Hi." And then he just runs down the stairs giggling. And Inko says, "God damn it." He did it again. And she starts laughing a little bit. She walks down the stairs after opening the door finally and getting dressed and everything. Once she goes down the stairs, she starts to make some breakfast for Izuku. She ends up making eggs, waffles, pancakes, a hamburger, quite weird to be honest, and some katsudon, which is quite a lot for, well, just one kid, but it's just for him and her. Also for Hisashi. Hisashi actually does live with them. He got back from overseas. He's just currently going out for some groceries. Immediately, Izuku's jumping up and down after finishing his food, basically inhaling it. Honestly, immediately when he started eating, Inko's like eyes were bulging out of her head. She looked at this man, and he straight up was like, "This is how you eat a Big Mac," is exactly how he was like. He just inhaled it like Kirby. And immediately, Inko just was like, "Oh my god, we need to get him on a food eating challenge." But Inko basically said, "Alright, I know you want to go to the quirk doctor, let's go ahead and go." He's just jumping up and down, very hyper. So Inko just says, could you stop jumping? Please, you're making me kind of dizzy trying to track you. Because he's running around, jumping up and down. And Inko gets an idea. He pulls out a prop Pokemon ball that she bought Izuku. And she throws it, she yeets it at him. It hits him in the back of the head. And it just falls to the ground. And Izuku just looks behind him and says, "Mom, what did you throw at me?" While Inko just puts on an Ash Ketchum hat and just says, "You gotta catch them all." So, once that happened, Izuku was puzzled. And he was like, "Oh, that's a Pokemon reference." And Inko said, "Yep, also, please calm down." Izuku finally calms down, walks to the car, gets in the front seat, the passenger seat, and just gets buckled up. And Inko just walks to the car, gets in the front seat, and drives off. Right when she drives off, they're going to the quirk doctor, and Izuku does one of the most unbearable things that a kid could do. He says, "Are we there yet?" And Inko's just saying no. And then after like 10 minutes later, he says, "Are we there yet?" And Inko says no. Then 30 minutes later, they're almost there. But Izuku asks the question a third time. Are we before he could even finish, Inko just basically pulls out a toy gun and says, "Don't you dare." And then he just like puts his hands up and says, "All right." He puts his hands back down. He looks back to the front of the car. And immediately, Inko puts away the toy gun and looks forward, starts to drive again after stopping for a little. And Izuku whispers under his breath, "Are we there yet?" And immediately, Inko just says, "Don't make me turn this car around." Immediately, Izuku finally shut up about it. So they finally made it to the quirk doctor. Right when they made it, Izuku gets out. He starts walking towards the hospital with Inko in hand. Like they're holding hands to the hospital. Right when Inko goes to the hospital, goes to the waiting room, immediately walks off to talk to the doctor. He was sitting in a chair, and Bakugo walks up to him. Bakugo walks up to him and says, "Hey, I get an explosive quirk." Explosions. I named it. And immediately, Izuku says, "Oh, wow, you'll be a great terrorist." And immediately, Bakugo says, "I know, right? Wait, no, I'm gonna be a hero." And then Izuku says, "Are you sure about that?" And he's like, "Yes." Izuku just says, "Are you sure about that?" And he says, "Yes." Then he's like, "You'll be a hero." And he's like, "Yes, I will." And he says, "No, you won't." Bakugo says, "Yes, I will." And Izuku just says, "No, you won't." And then he says, Bakugo just says, "No, I won't." It just continues over and over until Izuku finally says, "Hey, Bakugo, you can be a hero." And immediately Bakugo says, "No, I can't." And he says, "Damn it, Izuku." And they start chasing each other. Just like a friendly fun is what they were doing. And then Izuku gets called in to the doctor's office. He walks in. His mother's right beside the doctor. And he looks at the doctor and says, "So, are we going to do the tests?" And he says, "I need you to follow me around back. We're going to do the tests. We got to x-ray you. We got to do this different stuff." Immediately pulls Izuku away. And Izuku just starts screaming, "Stranger danger," while he says, "Where's the rape whistle?" And immediately Inko says, "No, that's just your doctor. His name is Harold, for God's sake." And Izuku says, all right." He says, "Hey, Harold, I got a question. Aside from being a doctor, do you have any other jobs?" And Harold says, "Well, I'm also a priest." And then immediately Izuku's like, "Oh no, I'm not an altar boy, so I should be fine." And immediately the doctor says, "I'm offended." So they start to walk away. And Inko is wondering what happened to this kid for him to be like this. He's so witty for some reason. And she's thinking, maybe I shouldn't have dropped him on the head when he was a kid. It was by an accident, though. And immediately, after a few hours of testing, Izuku comes out of the back, and immediately the doctor's falling behind. Right when Inko is about to ask what's his quirk, the doctor has a horrified expression, and Inko says, "Is he quirkless?" And the doctor says, "No, but he's gonna wish he was quirkless." Immediately Inko says, What do you mean by that?" And the doctor says, "Well, from scans, he's gonna get a lot of bitches." Says that out loud, and literally Izuku's like, "What does bitches mean?" And Inko says, "Watch your language in front of kids." And the doctor says, "But he made rape jokes. How is he he's just stuttering." And Inko says, "Watch your mouth." Then he says, "Well, apparently he's gonna get a lot of crazy people." And that's all the doctor would say. So Inko just took Midoriya, went back to the house, and Midoriya is thinking, how am I gonna become a hero with that quirk? Well, it looks like I'm gonna have to train a lot. So Midoriya, as soon as they reach the house, he goes up to his room, he starts doing push-ups and stuff, but he falls asleep doing 3 push-ups. And then the next day he goes into kindergarten. Right when he goes in, he immediately walks into the classroom, goes to his desk, sits down, and then he sees all these kids crowded around Bakugo beside him. And they're all saying how cool his quirk is. And Midoriya just looks directly at him and says, "Oh, that actually is kind of cool now that I think about it. I mean, you could essentially just say you're the bomb, right?" And everyone just deadpans and looks at him. And one of them just says, "No, just no." And you can just hear crickets. Just crickets everywhere. You can hear the cricket noise. Immediately afterwards, Bakugo asks Midoriya what his quirk was. And Midoriya goes off the description that the doctor said. So he pulls out his notebook that had the doctor written down parts of his quirk, what it does. And then he says, "From the doctor's description of this, it says I attract crazy bitches." And immediately, everyone in the class just stares at him. The teacher is bursting out laughing. And Izuku doesn't understand what he just said. Because he's in kindergarten. For fuck's sake. So all the other kids are wondering what his quirk does exactly. Like, that doesn't really say anything. So he just says, "Oh, I just attract people to me." They immediately say it's a stupid quirk, and as soon as it hits playground time, he's on the swing set alone, just thinking, how is my quirk any type of useful? He starts swinging on the actual swing set, and he's just like thinking about life right now. He's like questioning life. And all of a sudden, Bakugo walks up towards him with like two of his goons behind him. And he just says, "Hey, want to see a magic trick?" And immediately Izuku says, "No, I don't think I want to." And immediately Bakugo says, "Well, too bad." And Midori says, "Alright, what's the magic trick?" Immediately, Bakugo says, "The magic trick is pain." And he just punches Midori in the face, and he just flies out of the swing because he exploded his arm right when he did. He had explosions coming out of his hand right when he punched Midori in the face. He flew like a few meters away from the swing set. Then the guy with claws and wings ran up to Midori and started scratching him. Scratched him in the shoulder, scratched him in the chest, scratched him near the neck, and proceeded to throw him in the air and start to toss him like a rag doll. While Midoriya was consistently thinking, what did I do to deserve this? And the guy beside Bakugo had a speed quirk, and he's like, I'm about to end this man's whole career. And he just rushed towards Midoriya right when he's falling to the ground. And he's like, I'll save you with the punch. He just starts punching Midoriya like 17 punches in 5 seconds. But he was out of breath. And the funniest part was Midoriya is looking at this man. This man is chubby as all hell. Like, honestly, immediately when Midoriya saw him, he was like, oh my god, it's Big Chungus. But Big Chungus had a speed quirk, so he was getting mollywopped. And he was thinking, oh no, I had mollywopped by Big Chungus, as he fell to the ground unconscious. And right when he fell to the ground unconscious, he woke up in the infirmary. He got out of the infirmary bed. He was practically healed because of the nurse with healing quirk. He walked all the way outside. He was walking around towards his house. On the way to his house, he walked by the park. He sees one female, one other kindergartner that seems to be foreign, not really from his school. She has 2 pink tails and has red ribbons. One eye looks like a clock, apparently. The other one's red. And she's being picked on by Bakugo. Bakugo is threatening her with explosions and saying that she's weak, while the other 2 goons behind him are about to assault her. Immediately, Izuku runs in front of her and spreads his arms out and says, no, not anyone else. You're not going to bully him, Bakugo. Kachan is what he says. And immediately, Bakugo looks at him and says, yeah, who's going to stop me? Sure ain't going to be you. And they all start to laugh at him. Then Izuku just basically thinks in his head, I'm about to end this man's whole career. So he's been taking some fighting classes. Very little for a kindergartner. But he also is very intelligent. So right when Bakugo swings, he's like, this ain't gonna end like in the classroom. He dodges to the left. When Bakugo punches to the right, he grabs his arm, he twists it behind his back, puts him into a little police hold, kicks his head down to the ground, and then proceeds to spin kick the goon to the left that had claws that was literally throwing him in the air before. He kicked him right in the side of the head, and he just like flew a little backwards and hit a tree and got knocked out. Then the Big Chungus looking motherfucker runs towards him with a super speed and says, it's about to end just like last time. And Izuku just says, honestly, I'm surprised you can run that fast, considering there isn't a Big Mac around here since like 5 blocks down. And immediately when he says Big Mac, the fat guy just says, there's a Big Mac? And he starts running 5 blocks down. And Izuku just bursts out laughing. While he looks behind him and sees this girl, this kindergartner, blushing. She had 1 red eye, 1 clock eye, and black hair that was quite long and pink tails and twin tails with 2 ribbons, which was quite odd because she was wearing a little dress, which was weird. So he ended up asking her, "Are you okay?" He put out his hand and she grabbed it, and he pulled her up. Right when he did, she smiled at him, which he kind of flinched because, not gonna lie, when Izuku sees a smile, usually he returns one back. But the smile that she had was just straight up creepy. It was like the smile that he knew he had fucked up, is what his mind said. And then all of a sudden, he was in his mindscape, and he can see Michael Jackson literally dancing, saying, "You fucked up, hee hee." And Midoriya just says, "So what's your name, terrifying little kid?" Immediately, the twin-tailed kid just says, "My name's Kurumi." Right when she says that, Izuku says, I gotta go find my mom real quick. And then immediately when she lets go, he starts bolting away. And then she says, "I'll find you." She says that in a whisper, but Midoriya hears that and he's like, "No, you won't." And she just whispers, "Challenge accepted, bitch." And that's all. I hope you all enjoyed this. If you do, make sure you obliterate that like button. The more likes you put into a video, the more likely I'm going to do another part to it. If you're wondering why certain videos don't get another part, it's either because I'm working on it, I'm very busy, or it's because overall I didn't get enough support to get another part. So, have a wonderful day.